It's time for another stellar matchup of jiu-jitsu as we have former NFL football player Tornado Joe going up against 400-pound Augustine, a former wrestler. Now the roll starts with the traditional fist bump and they tie up while Augie looks for his little scissor sweep takedown. He lands it and immediately starts going for a footlock on Joe. This is how you can tell Augie is a very dirty jiu-jitsu player because he's attempting to footlock a white belt. Now at our gym, we don't let people attack white belts with footlocks, although white belts can do footlocks to higher belts. This is because they don't have enough knowledge on the footlocks and it's potentially dangerous for them. So instead, Augie lets go and starts going into a front headlock position. From this front head, Augie looks to go behind. He does this and he looks for the choke immediately. Joe is more concerned with not getting broken down, so he doesn't have hands able to defend the neck, but he does decide to tap out. The roll restarts, they look to tie up and begin their wrestling. Augie makes a little bit of an angle here, which allows Joe to get the single leg shot on him. He gets the legs between the legs, and he does attempt to push him out and go for a trip. However, he loses control of it, and Augie's able to reset. Now, a little bit of backstory on Augie. He was in my previous video where I said he was 220 plus. I was incorrect when I said that number. He's actually about 400 pounds. So you're going to be able to see him use his size difference here as he just hit that double leg takedown immediately into side control. Augie hit that double leg takedown with his head on the inside, which makes it harder to finish the shot, but it does give you better control and you're safer when you do it. He's using this same head pressure on the ground to prevent Joe from moving while he splits his legs until he decides to work back into regular side control. Joe is doing a good job at being active on bottom, trying to move and look for frames. However, he does give up bonus head control to Augie, which allows Augie to start looking for a head and arm choke. And you'd think with all that size, he'd be able to finish the choke and put all of his pressure down. However, he does lose it and he ends up in half guard. Augie looks to stay high on this half guard, which allows him to have a lot more mobility. This allows him then to go into a reverse half because he may have been thinking again to have some footlock tendencies, which is why he went to this position because it's very powerful for that. But reverse half also is good because you can always transition back to regular half guard and constantly keep their hips moving. However, on the way back, Joe was able to get an underhook with his right arm and he's able to use this to stand up and they can restart in a neutral wrestling position. Both athletes here look to do some hand fighting. If you're new to wrestling, hand fighting is just as important as it is in other grappling arts because you don't have the right distance unless you start doing the hand fighting. They're both looking for dominant control here. However, then, once Augie feels like he has a little bit of control, he goes for his own 360 single leg and he's able to get the dump on Joe. Now we can see here that Joe is shaking his head as he's embarrassed by that shot, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about when you're a white belt rolling with a much heavier blue belt. Augie decides to tell the audience how cool his shot was. He really believes he should have gone to the Olympics if they had a weight class that could hold all of his massive size. From top half guard, Augie sets up bonus head. This allows him to create some massive pressure on Joe, so he's able to move his hips and free his leg out of the half guard with an instep until he can pass right into full mount. Now from full mount, Augie decides to get an underhook on Joe's right arm, and then he employs the technique known as the inchworm. That's where you crawl your fingers up the mat so you can jack up their arm higher. However, he does lose it, and he doesn't attempt to go for another inchworm on Joe. Instead, he decides just to let Joe kind of escape by putting himself into Joe's half guard. Joe then decides to look into Augie and turn towards him and starts doing some shrimping to create some distance. He also attempts to grab Augie's right ankle and maybe look for a sweep. However, Augie pulls it out in time and then goes around Joe's legs to get right back into side control. Augie only stays in side control for a short while before he starts to pass right into north-south position and starts looking for a nice lat choke on Joe. Once he gets the arm around the neck, it's only a matter of time as you have to walk your legs out and create enough pressure on the neck before they do decide to tap. After this tap, they stand up again, start to do their wrestling. Joe, however, in this case, looks for a Russian tie and looks for an Uchimata. However, Augie's able to pull his leg out in time and they reset so they don't run into the bystanders, and then they get back into some hand fighting. Jump ahead a bit where Augie hits a nice knee pick on Joe and runs him all the way over to the wall. Again, Joe is seen shaking his head, but like I said before, there's no shame in trying to get better at jiu-jitsu and your wrestling. The two athletes are looking for positions, and Joe is staying a little bit flatter on his back this time. Augie's certainly wore him down to this point. However, Joe does decide to get a nice sweep on Augie by hip bumping and rolling him over the top. This brings us to the end of the video. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're almost to 1,000. Thanks for watching.